If you're trying to figure out how to get the perfect texture, this video will help you. This video is about using everything but the kitchen sink to get really cool textures in your watercolor paintings. Let's check it out. I think you're really going to like this, and I encourage you to do this sometime especially if you're stuck. I mean, it's a great one for testing out things, you know, products and things like that, but it's also great for just playing if you're stuck. So I'm going to start out by using these Aqua Monolith pencils. They are a water-soluble pencil, and there's no wood in these pencils. They are all just the pigment, so they break easily if you drop them, but I'm not here to sell the pencils. I'm just showing you that I'm going to use those actually a couple different times in this painting. So we are doing extreme texture today, and I'm going to make what might be maybe a tree branch. I don't know. I'm just kind of doing a crazy drawing. Let's just call this a branch, right? Some, like maybe it'll have moss grown on it or something. And because there's so much stuff on my table here, things might get in the way and it'll get crazy, but that's the fun of it. Okay, so I'm also going to just do a little scribbling. Now this is like a regular watercolor, a regular color pencil, except when you get it wet, it liquefies and it becomes paint. So I'm just throwing that on here to show you how today anything goes. Okay, so there's a little color there. Now, if I were to get into my paints, which are right here, I'm just going to splash some color on. I'm using mostly greens, blues, and browns, kind of nature colors. Whoops, there's a splash. Oh well, we don't care. So I'm doing this part on dry paper, but it's okay if you want to put wet on there, because again, this is just fun. I'm being messy. I don't care if I'm going outside of the lines of that stick, but right here, this does bug me. So we're just going to make it into kind of a offshoot branch. I don't know. It's going to look weird. But the whole idea of this is not about a beautiful painting. It's about playing around and having fun. So initially, I'm going to try and get a bunch of paint on here. You might be seeing that watercolor pencil, which I used at the beginning, is starting to kind of bleed. And as it gets wet, and when I say bleed, I mean it's turning into color. It's not just pencil, it's paint now. So here's a few other greens in here. Let's make our stick go that way. I like that purple, so I'm going to throw some of that. You can see as you're doing this that you will probably get icky colors that you don't like, but we don't care about that at all in this one. So just try to, if you decide to do this on your own, just try to go with it. You know, the thing that I most am concerned about is keeping the paper wet. So if you see me continuing to paint on things that have already been painted, that is because I'm really trying to keep things wet here. It's really hot. It's 85 degrees in the room where I am right now. Okay, so that's a lot of good juicy paint on there. Everything is still wet. Now we get into the everything but the kitchen sink. So I've got my salt. This is just normal table salt. Everybody has that. I'm just going to sprinkle it. I don't care where it lands. I'm just going for it. I also have sea salt, which is a little bit coarser, so I'm going to throw some of that in there. And I'm doing this fast because I need that paper to stay damp. This right here is called granulation medium, and it makes your paints granulate a little bit or separate, you know, a little bit more than they would normally. So I'm just squeezing some of that on it. If you're familiar with watercolor, you can see probably that there were some blooms that created. If you don't know what blooms are, I have a video on that. I will try to remember to link it, but if not, go to my page and search for blooms. Okay, so there we go. We got that going on. How about, oh, this one will be cool. Let's do this. You know how you have these what is this called? Pencil sharpener. When you sharpen the pencils that I used earlier, the ones that are the Aqua Monolith, which are completely all pigment, no wood, I like to save the shavings, and you can see there's a couple different colors in there because you can sprinkle them on. There's a little piece of wood in there too from a different pencil, so I'm going to actually, I'll just leave that in there. You can see it's a wood shaving. So I've sprinkled on some of that color. Might as well get all of it out of there. This is a big lump, but we'll see what happens. It's all about experimenting. So I threw those in there. Maybe it feels like, if it starts to feel like things are getting a little too dry, you could mist or drop on. This is just water, so I'm using my dropper to get those little pieces of shavings wet. Then, what if you have rubbing alcohol? This is in a sprayer. It's just like the, I think it's either 70 or 90% just rubbing alcohol. If you do a little, let's see if I can get this to work. I'm almost out, so here we go. See that? When you spray that on a painting, it makes these beautiful little marks that open up. And I'm guessing that probably my work here is a little bit too dry. I'm sorry, too wet. So it's kind of not giving me the drama that I would get if I had a little bit of a drier painting. Okay, well, what would happen next if I usually don't use any white paint until the end of things because it turns stuff milky, but here's a little bit of, this is P.H. Martin's bleed proof white. If I just like put a little bit in here and there with the tail end of my brush, and let me get a little bit more. I'll put it in some of the wet areas. It could make an interesting effect. Let's try some just randomly here and there. This is how you have those unexpected things happen, because you just let yourself try. Here I'm going to put that white right in that glob of those colors. Remember the shavings that I put on there? I'm kind of rinsing the tail end of my brush in my water each time because I don't want to contaminate my white here. All right, so there's a decent amount of white gouache. Gouache is different than white paint because it is more opaque. Here's another spray of alcohol. Let's see what happens. Okay, that's interesting. All right, here is loose leaf tea. You can open up a tea bag if you want, but I had some loose leaf, and there's some larger chunks in here, so it'll be interesting. All of this is going to make just interesting texture. If it gets outside of your branch, you can shush it back in there. Okay, so a little tea. If your painting has started to become dry, none of this dry stuff that you put on is going to do anything. It won't react. So you can always re-wet it. You can spray, this is just water. I'm misting just a little bit of water. It's kind of hard because it blows that stuff out of my off of my the area that I'm trying to have them, but I don't mind a little mess. You can also take your brush and just drop or flick a little water on. And if you've ever used salt or any other things on your paintings, you know that any object that you drop onto your wet paper will draw the paint to itself and leaves interesting impressions. Okay, so that was loose leaf tea. What's next? Here is some wild rice. Again, try to look for areas that are still wet. How about down in here? And you can use the tail end of your brush to put these bits where you want them to be. I think it's kind of looking pretty. All those unexpected colors from the pencil shavings are neat to see. Okay, that was my rice. Here is Harvest Blend Couscous. Plus I added some chia and some flax seeds in there. So I'm just looking for all kinds of different shapes of my objects, because you know couscous is a different shape than rice and blah blah blah. So you can barely see any of the paint, and it's so chunky that it's rolling off the page. I'm gonna have to vacuum. Okay, so there's that. Now this is a good one. Old-fashioned oatmeal, like the big stuff. I've used that before. Kind of can simulate pebbles or rocks in a painting. We're not even doing things like using saran wrap, which is pretty common. We're trying all kinds of different things today. So there's my oatmeal, and I think things have become a little too dry here. So I'm going to take my same brush and whatever colors, and I'm just going to touch some real wet paint on. Actually, I'm going to use a bigger brush. Let me use a big, huge 20 because I can get a lot of water in there. Let's have a different color that we haven't used before. I don't care what it mixes up to look like. It might be funky and weird, but be neat to see. This is like a kind of a bright, it's called bright violet. It's like a magenta kind of color. I don't want to get tea in my paint. Let me make a little puddle of it somewhere else on my palette. So again, I'm doing this, you know, the addition of this new color because things are starting to dry on my paper. And if they get too dry, none of these objects are going to do anything for me. So I'm going to kind of drop the, it's tricky because the stuff sticks to your brush, but still fun. I'm going to drop in some paint on top of the stuff here. You could also, if it's easier, I think it will be easier, let me try this. You can use an eyedropper to grab some paint out of your palette. See how I've loaded this? And then this is much easier doing it this way. Then you're not getting everything stuck on your brush. Here, let's get this color. Okay, so re-wetting, adding in, this is a pink. Just trying to get all those objects nice and wet. When you're doing this, you don't want to use anything that is sticky. Like I used salt, but I would not use sugar because for one thing, sugar will dissolve and probably get stuck to your paper. But also it could be sticky later. It could attract, you know, pests of some sort, so you got to be careful of that. And I would not use anything smelly, like even though you think beef jerky might be an interesting thing to add, because if you're just playing around, I wouldn't do that because it probably will smell bad. You get it. I mean, you've got common sense. I'm pretty sure you know what you should or should not use, but just saying. All right, so I've added a lot more water onto all of this. So let me see. We've had colored pencil, we've had paint, granulating medium, 2 kinds of salt, rubbing alcohol, white paint, pencil marks, pencil shavings. Later, when it's dry, you can use a sea sponge and you would get it wet, wring it out, and maybe dip it into your paint and tap on some other areas. We use tea, all the food that we use, so lots of different things. Now we just need to let it dry and see what happens. Okay, a lot of time has passed and it took forever because I really packed on a bunch of paint and water and all kinds of other stuff on here. And when you have a lot of stuff layered on, it holds water in longer. So once you have it all the way dry, and you do want it to be all the way dry, because if you take this off too early, you'll either smear your paint or you just won't have all of those cool kind of marks that get left behind, because the paint needs time to dry to set up and hold that shape. So anyway, whenever you're done, I like to use an old gift card. Okay, so here we go. You can see that that oatmeal really wanted to stick, and as I was heat gunning this, it started to smell like I was, you know, making popcorn or toasting the oats or the tea or whatever. It smelled like I was cooking, so it's kind of funny. All right, so mine was just not quite as dry as I would have liked it, but I don't want to let this video go. I wanted to get it done for you today. So let's get rid of some of that. Very cool mark making has happened here. I usually do a little extra scraping in case there's any chunks or some of those pencil shavings that did not get wet and they're just like loose powder. You want to get those out of there. And let's tap this. So definitely messy, but check out, sorry, I shook the camera. Check out all these marks. I'm gonna have to go like this so I can get you in closer. Look at how cool this texture can be. You can see the white paint is in there, some granulation, there's blooms, there's just all this texture that you can't make any other way. Some parts of it are so beautiful that you could see using it in a forest scene, a branch, tree bark, anything like animal, lizard skin, alligator skin. You can do all kinds of things with this. And then the last thing that I was talking to you about is if you do want to use your sea sponge. I don't really want to use it on here because this is so pretty how it is, but I told you I would do it. So you want to dunk it into your water and then wring it out. I'm wringing it out over here because I don't want it to drip onto my painting. And then you can get whatever color paint you want. Let's have a little bit of this one. So I'm loading up my sponge, and when I sponge, I don't want to just always press in the same direction. Press, press, press. I want to turn that sponge all different directions because then it has variety in the stamping. It doesn't look like you always made the same mark over and over again. So here I'm trying to create maybe a little mossy texture up on the top of that branch there. Or if you made a color that kind of looks like lichen, that would be cool. But you get the idea. And I can't really do too much actually on the branch because there's so much already on there that I feel like if I pounced it with this sponge, it would cover up a lot of the cool effects that I already have. So I'm just going to do it just a little bit. And then you want to just rinse out your sponge when you're done. So hopefully you liked that. That was a crazy fun everything but the kitchen sink. If you did like it, then please like this video or leave a comment. Tell me what you like best and subscribe to my channel if you're watching this on YouTube. And I would love to hear from you and tell me what other videos you'd like me to make. Thanks for watching.